So have you been training actually? Now you said you were out with your tattoo.
Yeah. So I train like 3 days a week now. I've been getting like my arm tattooed, which is, it's like self-inflicted torture in some ways, because I mean, it does hurt, but like besides that, I can't train for like 10 days. And it's like you'll get some momentum with training. Like I went to Chewy had a camp in Costa Rica that I went to.
How was that?
That was awesome. It was great. I recommend everybody go. It was like super laid back. The gym itself, Hero BJJ in Costa Rica is like super, everybody's so cool. They're so used to visitors because they get them all the time.
Right.
And it's like, you're on vacation, so it's like you're not like trying to kill each other.
No, right.
Just having fun, drilling. And even though like I train with Chewy all the time, like being able to like rep some of the stuff and get good at some of the stuff, I actually came back and just started using a technique that I've had in my arsenal, but I never really polished. So it was kind of cool to work on it and just spend like literally a week training, like honestly just focusing on training and enjoying yourself. It was awesome.
Nice.
It's a cool experience.
Is that the same place where B Team was at the time where they were in? Was it?
No, I don't think so. No, I think they had some other. They were in Costa Rica somewhere, and they've actually had the Rutola brothers that popped in from time to time.
You guys rode with them, right? You didn't?
No, this was at a different camp. They just stopped in, but they're going to have they have a camp out. They have a gym. I think they're starting out there as well. So it's pretty cool. It's just a cool spot. It's literally maybe the size of this area here, maybe smaller, but it's just very fun. It's a very cool experience. The people are great, and Costa Rica is awesome.
Yeah,
so it's beautiful.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Every time I see that pop up when Chewy posts about it, is always something that I feel like I want to do immediately.
Well, I brought my wife has just started training.
Oh, nice.
She's been training like consistently like 6 to 8 months now. But she's been around it forever.
Right.
And I was like, let's just go. And she's like, I'm in it. I'm cool. And there was like beginners there, like she's a white belt. So there's beginners there that were like on her skill level.
Nice.
And so she got to like train with women that were like on her skill level, her size. So it was just a really cool, she had an enjoyable experience too. And then you go with friends. Like Jeff from the gym and his wife came along as well. So it was fun. It was just a good experience. It really is just vacation.
Yeah.
So with sprinkled of Jiu Jitsu, because like you don't have to search for a class or search for
that's
you
true.
just go and like you already know you're going to train, and that's it. The worst part was that we were working a lot of like side control stuff, and I was Chewy's uke for the whole week. So I was like just getting crushed like for hours upon hours while he's showing technique. So every day I'm like, oh my God, my ribs are starting to get sore from being underneath them. Yeah, but it was an awesome experience for sure.
That's awesome, man. Speaking of training, do you feel like you're competing anytime soon, or is that kind of like something that you're putting by the wayside behind you?
So I want to compete again. I definitely, it's been on my radar for a while now. I've kind of gotten the itch a little bit. It's just, I've had like nothing crazy, but like some health issues that kind of like I was getting ready to compete, and just some stuff came up and I had to take care of. Nothing major, but it was just, I don't know. I do want to train consistently to get ready, because I mean, black belt is there's such a discrepancy in skill. Like you could have a brand new black belt that's just been a black belt for a week, or you could have a black belt that's been a black belt for 15 years, 20 years. They got their black belt 20, and so they're just like absolute monsters, So black belt's an interesting belt, but I definitely, you should go out there and play your game. And I think for me, the biggest thing that I've always talked about is the nerves. I get nerves, and I think like the more you do it, the easier it gets. There's always some nerves, and nerves are good, but I definitely want to compete. I'm getting ready to be 40 as the time of recording, this month in August. So I'm, we'll see how it goes, but I'm definitely going to get out there and compete for sure. I think it's something you should do as a practitioner of jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I just think even if you don't want to be a competitor, I think it's really important it gives you a lot of information. I think as a white belt and blue belt, it told me a lot about what I was decent at and what I was not good at, and it exposed me a little bit, and it made me work, gave me somewhere like a direction to go towards. So absolutely.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Do you find, I don't know how much you travel and train, but wherever you go, do you feel like there's PTs training, or is that like a rare thing that you don't really see?
You know, you get, I don't know, like, I think there's more people popping up that are PTs that train. I just think it's just the nature of jiu-jitsu being more popular.
Okay.
I think it's good that there's more PTs out there because they start to have an understanding of what jiu-jitsu requires. Like, what are the physical demands of jiu-jitsu? And the biggest issue that, you know, me and another PT, he's a black belt. He goes by Dr. Kickass on Instagram.
Yeah.
We kind of chat together and stuff. And you know, he has a lot of similar philosophies. We share a lot of similar ideas, but there's such a disconnect between physical therapy, like return to sport life versus return to jiu-jitsu. It's such a gap there that needs to be filled because, I mean, even with wrestlers, like wrestling, I've worked with some wrestlers and they've gone back and they were not prepared. Like, okay, you're strong in these single plane movements and stuff, but you're not prepared to go back. Like, your body's not even used to these movements and having resistance and dynamic resistance from different angles and different speeds. It's just, there's so much that needs to be, it's not just physical too, you know that. There's a mental component, like, to getting back to it. There's just that mind-body connection that has to be there. So.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're really passionate about it, and I want to get your take on how you do that. How do you bridge that gap from, you know, getting the basics out of the way from the recovery with the range of motion strength, and what do you do to get somebody ready to return, and what does that training look like?
Yeah, it has to be a graded approach. Like, it has to be very gradual, and it's not like, it's dependent on the person. Obviously, you want to look at your symptoms, right? You want to look at, are they having pain with movements? Are they having, you know, any issues, instability, anything? Like, are they having any problems with certain movements? So you start with just, obviously, you're getting their range of motion back. And then you say, okay, what positions do we need to get into jiu-jitsu? Can you get in these positions through solo drills or just slower movement, you know, drills, or even techniques that may promote those movements? You know, if you have a neck injury, are you able to roll back onto your shoulders? You're able to invert a little bit, you know, by yourself. You're able to kind of start to do some Granby rolls and things like that. So I start like by solo drills, then, you know, give them some time, see how they feel. Then you do partner drills. So it's kind of like a graded approach. So partner drills would be maybe you're just drilling minimal or no resistance. Then you can go to positional sparring, right? So like, we're going to get in closed guard. We're not going to, you know, we're going to pass defend or whatever. You might give me light resistance. Then we'll go to heavier resistance. We're actually trying to sweep you or submit you. You're trying to pass my guard. But we don't get out of that position. When the position ends, reset. So that way you're taking away a lot of these mobility and like these like scrambles, right? Then you start, maybe you can do a full roll from like maybe a standard position of like a half guard or an open guard or whatever. And then you go back to actually takedowns and things like that. I think takedowns there's a lot more that can go on. A lot of people get injured on takedowns. There's a lot more that can happen. But the point is, like, it's a graded approach. And during that time, you need to be mindful of your recovery, mindful of your strength conditioning. The other thing is dosage, right? How much are you going to train? Are you going to go 100%? Or are you going to go maybe 50%, you know, a couple days a week, and maybe have a tough day? Instead of going 5 to 6 times a week, every day you're training hard, like, can you maybe back it off and still train maybe that many days or less, but vary the intensity? So getting someone back to the mats, here's an easy way that you can do this. Here's an easy way. If you're trying to get back to the mats, say your gym has like rolling, full rolls, and you're already back to it. You're feeling good, but you're coming back from injury. I tell people, roll 1 round, sit 2. Roll 1, sit 2. Do that for maybe a week or 2, whatever it is. Next thing you're gonna do is roll 1, sit 1. Roll, and then we're gonna go roll 2, sit 1. Roll, and then you're gonna get back to pretty much full rolling. I mean, there's a lot of other factors, right? Choose your training partners wisely. Communicate with your training partners, with your coaches. Let them know, hey man, my shoulder's a little tweaked. Can we just watch it? And the unwritten rule of jiu-jitsu, I made a video about this. One of the unwritten rules, I think, if this is just what I believe, if my shoulder is injured, I'm not going to go after your shoulder. we're gonna make the play, because that's no fun.
Yeah.
Then you're just attacking me, and I can't do the same to you, kind of thing. So I just say, hey, I'm not gonna attack your shoulder. You don't attack mine, something like that. I just think it makes it more fun, because then you realize, all right, we're gonna go for legs more. We're gonna do different types. We're gonna maybe go for chokes and things like that. So there's a lot of variability to it. It depends on your comfort level, but you have to come back gradually. It's really important.
Do you, besides that kind of training change and adaptation, when do you decide if somebody is ready for competition? I mean, you're a coach too, so what do you look for? And it's great because you're a PT and a coach, and you're able to really break down movements. So do you have a time frame, just a general one? Obviously it depends.
I wouldn't say a time frame. I think some of that stuff is fear avoidance behavior. So for people, like if we're talking about, just for not a healthcare provider, it's just, are you fearful of a certain movement? Are you fearful of going for a takedown? If you have a lot of fear there and you hesitate, that's a little bit of a problem. Even though physically you're there and everything is moving properly and you have good strength, good explosiveness, able to dynamically change directions, all that stuff. If you are unable, to pull a trigger, that's a problem, because you can get injured. So that a little bit, so communicating with your athlete, obviously it's a different pace to competition. Like you're going to be moving at a completely different speed and intensity. You try to recreate that in the gym. You may do simulate like point rounds and things like that, or competition type setting. In-house tournaments are awesome. Like if people are preparing, if your students are preparing for a gym or for a tournament in the gym, set it up like, all right guys, Saturday we're going to have we're going to basically bracket people, and we're going to do like a competition. We're going to have people reffing. We're going to simulate this thing. I think it's a great way to see how you feel. And a lot of it's based on your symptoms, right? Are you hurting? You feel good? Is your recovery okay? I mean, there's a lot of factors, but some of it's mental. When it comes down to like you've checked all the boxes physically, mentally you're able to pull the trigger, because a lot of people still have a hard time getting over that fear.
I'm 100%. I've noticed that too. I've worked with athletes that have the same problem. Now you were touching on that pain and whether or not you have it. Can you maybe dive into that a little bit more? Because as you train, especially in jiu-jitsu, there's pain very frequently, and there's pain that lasts for a little while or whatever. So can you go into that a little bit more?
So here's some red flags. So one thing I tell people, if you are, so 0 is no pain at all, 10 is the most pain you can think of. If you are getting your pain levels over a 4 out of 10, I'd say it's probably a red flag to modify or taper what you're doing. Any kind of sharp shooting pain, numbness, tingling, I mean, it's not necessarily pain, but any kind of sensation issues, weakness, burning, like that feels neurological, like a nerve, that's a red flag for me. Like you need to stop or modify what you're doing. But if it's like an ache, you're sore, that comes and goes. That comes with jiu-jitsu, of course. But any kind of like sharp shooting, neurological type stuff where you're having numbness, tingling, that's a sign that something's going on with the nerve, and you got to take that seriously. And that's just a blanket. It doesn't always have to be. It's not always a serious thing, right? It's not always like, oh man, something terribly is wrong, but it's something to be addressed, and you need to make sure that you don't provoke that or make it kind of get worse.
Yeah. Since we're on the topic of recovery and return to sport, or staying healthy while you're in the sport, what's your take on PEDs in jiu-jitsu? Do you feel like there's an issue with that? And the reason why I'm asking that is because I tend to see athletes who have tendon ruptures or muscle ruptures.
Sure.
So, like you get your bicep, you get your pec ruptures, etc. So what's your take on that? Is there any correlation?
Well, I mean, absolutely there can be. Like I said, if your muscles get extremely big quickly and stronger quickly, the tendons don't have time to adapt to that. And that's why like some of the training that I do, the specific joint training, functional range conditioning, and like isometrics and things like that. I do a lot of that for specific joint and health and like strengthening tendons, because you can't strengthen tendons and ligaments. It takes time though. The muscles are going to get much bigger. Now, I think of it more as like if you and I take steroids right now, and we go against Gordon Ryan, are we going to beat Gordon Ryan? Absolutely not. Even if he was, I don't know if he's clean or not. I'm not saying anything. I don't know. But probably not. So steroids they're part of it, or part of jiu-jitsu, especially if you go to the master worlds. Like, there's so many jacked dudes walking around in the 50s and they're just yoked, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. The way people look at 50. But some of that is important to keep people healthy on the mats, right? My issue is could there be injuries? Potentially, yes, absolutely. I don't know. It's hard to say if those correlate, if performance enhancing drugs correlate with higher injury risk. It's possible. I'd have to look at the research it does make sense to me. Yes, if you put on quite a bit of muscle and strength in a short period of time, that especially when we're squeezing these explosive movements, it could be an issue. I don't know if it correlates to injuries. I kind of feel like it can help mitigate some injuries, it's keeping your body stronger. It's allowing you hopefully to get in the gym and lift and be stronger, so it can kind of help protect your joints and your body a little bit. I think it's a fairness thing. Like, you shouldn't just test if you're going to test people, you should test everyone. Like,
I see what you mean.
Worlds,
yeah.
Don't test the people that got on the podium. Test everyone. Yeah. Because chances are most of those people are taking it. They train in similar gyms, similar circles. I don't know. Like, what are your take? Have you done any research? Like, I'm curious if you've kind of noticed anything.
I have not, but I do notice that that there's a high incidence or a high correlation between the tendon ruptures and PEDs. However, I will say that I've actually worked with people who had, like, let's say, for example, a rotator cuff surgery, and they have taken steroids afterwards to help with the recovery.
100%.
I will say that they have recovered very quickly and, have met their marks in a very good way. So
I agree. I'm 100%. I think that if you want to take that and the risks and you're doing it in a way that you feel, I don't know what a safe way is. I don't really know a ton about that space. If you're older and you're having a hard time recovering, or you have a serious injury like a rotator cuff and you're in your 50s and you want to give yourself a little boost in recovery, like I don't see anything wrong with that. Now, if you use it for performance enhancement, but if you use it for recovery and rehab, man, I don't know if that's wrong. I think it's just a tool in the toolbox, and it might not be a popular opinion with people, but I think you could use it. Like, look at Anderson Silva when he broke his leg. Never got caught for steroids. Doesn't look like he takes steroids, right? And some people don't, but I'm sure he took it as a part of his recovery. And I'm sure Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
We don't know. Right. Speculate. He doesn't quite look. He has some differences in jaw structure and things like that. Size, but maybe you did. And you know what? It's out there. It should be a level playing field, but again, there's pros and cons for everything. But I don't see anything wrong with someone taking steroids for recovery. I think it's just, you want to get yourself back to where you're going the best way you can. So yeah, there's always different opinions on that stuff.
Since we're on the topic of injuries and stuff like that, I was just curious, since you're pretty active in that field, what do you see is most commonly injured? What do you most commonly work with or see, or stuff like that?
Man, it depends on the study. There's some stuff, a guy, Chris Moriarty, did he's a black belt, was a pretty high level competitor. I don't think he competes anymore. He did a study, or basically a survey of injuries. I think he did one. I think you're looking at a lot of shoulders, elbows, knees, probably. Hips aren't as commonly injured. You can get injuries, but they're not commonly injured in competition or training. I think they're more of an overuse thing. I would say shoulders, elbows, knees are probably the biggest. And again, you got ankle locks and stuff, ankle injuries from here and there, but those are probably the big ones. But I think as you look at wear and tear, the neck and the back, because it's such a flexion, we're always curled in. It's such a flexion-based sport, and you have to have that mobility, that flexion. You have to have it. But that can lead to some stuff if you're, inverting and you get folded up pretty bad, somebody heavy comes in and puts some pressure on you, and there's going to be some issues. Yeah.
Right. Is there anything like in your history that you had to deal with, like an injury, and are there some mistakes that you've made when you were returning?
Yeah. So injury wise, yeah, actually, when I was a purple belt, there's a guy, he's actually a neurologist now. We trained together from time to time, and I stood up. I was kind of messing with him because he'd come in very sporadically to train. I was kind of messing with him a little bit, and I stood up, and he grabbed my lapel and pulled, and I planted my hand out of instinct, and I fractured my radius. And you don't even think about it. Like, I knew not to do that, but I just couldn't. I didn't land properly. I was purple belt at the time, and it was my fault. So you should never let somebody grab your lapel and just let them hang on to it. If you're in the gi, for sure. So that was I was just playing around. I didn't think he was going to go 100% and pull, but you never know. So you have to protect yourself. As far as recovery goes on that, I kind of did my own recovery. I did something kind of dumb. Some people might say dumb is like, after I let it heal for I think 6 weeks, I would train one-handed. I would put my hand in my belt, and I would train one-handed and just work on guard retention and just stuff that I could do with one arm. So it was kind of fun, but I was younger and probably more dumb. I would have done the recovery a little better probably, but I did my own recovery. I just kind of strengthened myself and worked on range of motion and stuff like that.
Okay. I don't know if it's a dumb thing. I've done that before, and I think it's more of an old school thing. Yeah. Like, my coach was telling me, hey, the main thing, the goal was just to be able to stay on the mats, and not in a bad way, just to, keep moving and to protect yourself while you're still, moving. And
if you know how to do that. I was a purple belt at the time, so I kind of knew. I knew the upper belts weren't going to just try to smash me, and the white and blue belts would come after me because passes
blood in the water.
But it was good. It was good. It made my guard retention better. I learned what I could and couldn't do. I got a lot better in some aspects. I got to stay on the mats, and there was no pressure. It was fun actually, because I was like, I'm not supposed to be able to do anything at this point.
Right.
Let's just see if I can survive and not get smashed. And so it's kind of fun.
Well, something we did recently, actually, which I really like, is drilling arm bars from closed guard, but not using your hands or your arms.
Yeah.
So, it just teaches you different mechanics. It focuses and emphasizes different movements. So I think it's a good training tool to use at times.
Yeah. It was fun. It was interesting. I learned my lesson. Learn to break fall. Learn how to properly, brace yourself and do those things. Yeah.
Do you feel, what do you train in mostly, actually? You train no-gi or gi?
I do about 50-50. It just depends. It's basically on my schedule.
So now, just looking at, at the different aspects of each, do you feel one is a little bit more, or placing athletes more at risk than the other? Do you feel like there's an injury discrepancy?
I think it depends on who you ask, honestly. Some people feel that the gi's harder on them. It's harder on their hands. Like, I've had some injuries, and most of my injuries to my fingers have been from the gi. Some people feel like the gi, somebody tugging on your lapel can irritate the neck and the back and stuff. But some of the advantages of that is, like, if you're an older grappler, or maybe you have somebody that moves a lot, you can kind of hold somebody a little more. You can control their movement more. Injury-wise, you got to look at leg locks specifically. There's such a vast number of attacks in no-gi. So I think leg locks and leg injuries are more prominent in no-gi. In gi, I think there's obviously you can't attack you can do straight ankles and knee bars and stuff, but not as it's not as common there to you can still injure, obviously. So I think it's just kind of one of those things where what you're comfortable with. Like, we had a guy, Jason Khalipa, that was on me and Chewy do a podcast. He was on the podcast. He was a CrossFit world champion. He's also purple belt, high level purple belt in Jiu Jitsu. And he said he prefers no-gi. And the reason why he prefers he prefers gi.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why he prefers gi is because in no gi, there's sweat puddles everywhere and you can slip more easily and injure yourself. Versus in gi, it's like the gi absorbs a lot of the sweat and the moisture. And I was like, that's an interesting point. Because I would have thought a guy like him that's got a cardio for days and likes to move a lot would like no gi better because he could move more. And neck injuries, look at the stuff like as far as if you look at no-gi, you don't have the lapels, so you have to go, you're pulling along the neck, you're going for guillotines, things like that. Maybe more often than not, but I mean, I don't know injury rates, but I think those are the things I think of. The leg locks and the leg injuries are probably a big discrepancy, just because of just the nature of the attacks. But both are, I like doing both. I think if you want to get more mileage out of your body, you should do both.
Yeah.
Because you're working your body in different ways. You're still doing jiu-jitsu. I'm not one that's like, you should do gi, you should no gi, do whatever the hell you want and enjoy it.
Do you find that there's more risk with a certain body attack, or like, for what I'm asking is like, for example, when you're comparing leg attacks to arm attacks, do you feel one is placing people at higher risk than the other?
I mean, I think a Kimura is just as dangerous as the heel hook. They don't necessarily hurt terribly bad until something snaps. They're one of those things that don't really hurt until you reach that breaking point. I think people are so much more used to arm attacks and things like that they're more aware. It's not as like foreign, but now you're getting leg locks are very popular, and pretty much most people know how to do leg locks and things like that. So I think there's still stigma behind leg attacks. They were seen as kind of like a dirty move, essentially. But if you roll with someone that's good and controlled, they're going to probably put you in a position and they're going to hold it. And if you can't get out, 1, 2, 3 seconds, they're staring at you. Yeah, you're caught. So just know, and you gotta train that stuff. Don't avoid it, even if it's not part of your game. If you at least know what they're doing and how to defend it, you're gonna know when you're caught, when you're not caught, and you're gonna know also what to do if you do get in a bad situation. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. How do you like to structure your week when it comes to training jiu-jitsu, when it comes to implementing weight training, flexibility training? What do you do with, that kind of stuff?
So right now, like I actually started, so there's a guy, Eli, who is like a strength nutrition coach. My wife and I actually started working with him. So he's structuring my diet, and then he's structuring like my strength training. I strength train now 3 days a week. I do like a very light, like fasted cardio a couple days a week, or like 4 days a week or something. So just, but I really don't like to, my body has a hard time. Like if I lift heavy and then I go train, it's hard on me to train jiu-jitsu. And even like if I have a hard training session in jiu-jitsu, I feel tired, I feel fatigued. I still can get a workout in, like I did yesterday, but I had a early morning class, and then I worked out like mid-afternoon. So I try not to do on the same day, but if I do work out on the same day, it's like a workout. I lift weights and do jiu-jitsu. I give it plenty of time between. And the other things to supplement that, make sure your diet's on point, you're drinking plenty of water, you're taking care of your recovery, you're doing some mobility work here and there, you're doing some stretching if you like that, specifically post-training or post-jiu-jitsu. So I personally and I don't really do nothing. Like I'll go for a walk. I never just sit around. Like my recovery is not sitting around doing nothing, which I think some people are like, oh, I have a rest day, I'm just not doing anything. You got to get some movement, and that helps your body out. So that's just for me what I think is important. But I try to structure in a way where they're not close together, and if I can keep it on separate days, I will. Sometimes it's not possible, but I'll try to do that if I can.
Do you have a number in your mind, like how many times you want to train jiu-jitsu during the week, how many times you want to lift, how many times you want to work on flexibility? Yeah,
I do. I think like lifting, strength training right now, based on my program, I don't have a ton of choice over. It's 3 days a week, which I think is good. And then, man, I'll tell you, my sweet spot for jiu-jitsu, if I could do 4 days a week, I do get about 3, 2 to 3. Like 1 week I'll get 3, 1 week I'll get 2, but 3 is good. 4 I think would be ideal for me, but I think if I can do 3 at least consistently, I think that's keeps me kind of on it, keeps me sharp, keeps my body kind of used to it. So I think you got to build up kind of a conditioning for jiu-jitsu. If you're like haven't been to jiu-jitsu in a couple of weeks and you go train, you're like feel beat up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I definitely like getting 3 days a week, 4 days a week. I'm almost 40, so you got to listen to your body. And if I have a really tough day, then I might take a little lighter day or something like that. But it just depends on what feels good to you and you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you? How old are you, by the way?
I'm 33.
Okay. How many days a week do you train?
I try to train 3 days a week.
Yeah.
With a comp session in there thrown in.
That's a harder.
Yeah. Longer session. And then I try to do 1 or 2 weightlifting days and at least 1 yoga day.
Yeah, yoga, that's great, man. That's a great recovery. Like mobility work, is also important. I'll try to sprinkle that in the day if I can. I'll do some hip cars or joint circles, and I'll do some gentle mobility. If I'm just standing around, I'll do some of that. So it's just one of those things where you have to get it where you can, fit it in where you can, right? And make it count.
Yeah.
You got to do stuff you enjoy too. Recovery is important, of course.
For sure.
There's so many people you just have to keep up with that. Stretching and recovery is not just stretching. It could be, like I said, mobility work, your diet and water intake and taking naps and stuff. So.
Yeah. Taking naps is good.
Yeah, if you can get a nap in, man, it's. I'll tell you, when we talk to some people, some of these highest level competitors, what do you do? We take naps.
Yeah.
It could be a 20, 30-minute nap.
Uh-huh.
To just help their body kind of reset and recover. That was one of the big things they did. So
Nice.
You get an excuse to nap now. There you go.
There you go.
Highest level competitors are doing it.
That's a good tip. I think I'm going to jump on that train.
Why not? Who wouldn't want to nap midday and when you're kind of tired and your body's I could use a nap right now after lunch or something. Not a bad idea.
Yep.
But,
all right, man. Thanks so much for meeting up again. I really appreciate it, dude.
Thank you, Ed.
Always awesome. And then, we're going to take it out on the mats in a little while. So
he's going to try to give me the business. So
no loop chokes. That's my biggest goal. If I can just go away today or go to my place and say I didn't get loop choked by you, that's my
I'll
goal.
go for something else.
No, don't do that. That's lame, man.
I got something. You already know what I'm going to go for. All right. We'll see what's up.
All right.
I'll be nice about it. We'll see.
All right,
Maybe
guys.
I won't hit it, but I might set something else up. You never know.
What are you going to set up?
I don't know. You might catch me at something.
Oh, okay. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you got something out of that episode. Check out Dr. Eugene's channel, the Jiu Jitsu Therapist. Always great content on there. So thanks for tuning in. If you like what you saw, leave a like, leave a subscription, and tune in into the next episode. All right, guys.
See y'all.